I think that a lot of promotion has been done in the recent past. There's the new logo and the brand, and I Love Regina, and the whole province is booming. There's a lot going on. I think the promotion that needs doing is inside of the city, like within the limits. There's lots of residents that don't feel welcomed or involved in a lot of the policy making and various things, and to promote to the people that are here and have been here, some for generations. I think that promoting is more important than outside the limits of Regina. And as far as three priorities, I would say equality is number one. I think there's a lot of rebalancing that needs to be doing through how City Hall, how they listen, how they get involved with the citizens. That's for sure number one, I think. Number two, I would say transportation, like in a just kind of a broad way. There's a lot of how we get around transit and the streets, and there's ideas with creating complete neighborhoods that have all the amenities in a smaller area, and get away from the big box model where and the large low density developments. I think a shift away from that sort of thing. So just the movement, there's efficiencies that can be improved that way for sure. And thirdly, I would say sustainability, like just the really thinking of the future of the generations to come, and the kids, and where things will be at here. The really necessary elements, such as the water treatment issues, and food supply security with our food, things like that. There's a lot to go off on those three headings, I think that City Council can always do better. I won't sit here and sling mud or say that the current council is doing a bad job. I think each one of them has good intentions at heart, and they need they need commendation on that. But absolutely more can be done to make sure that people, when they want to, they can see the details of, okay, what's going on, who's getting paid, and what are the channels that things go through, and more transparency and availability is definitely a good thing to strive for. Stadium, the current plan that everyone's looking at right now, I'm not in favor of that plan. A lot of other information has come forward where there may be far better ways with less of a debt burden for the public. Honestly, if it was a really good plan, I think that private money would have already come forward, and some investor would have already said, okay, this is a money-making thing we can do in Regina, and it would have happened. And the way it's taken so long, and the details have changed, it's been a confusing thing for months and months, with a roof or without, and private investment or not. And short answer, no. There's other priorities as well. There's other more important things that the city can spend that kind of money on if we were to go into that kind of debt, which I think is a mistake, to burden ourselves and future residents with that kind of debt. Yes, I'm aware. I've watched the news on that sort of thing. I've followed that somewhat, and I can see, as I get around the city on the bus and on foot a lot of times, and I see where things are kind of breaking apart, and where they've had to dig things up and fix pipes and so on. I think that's a really important thing to take care of, and I know there's been summits and a lot of attempts to gather good information on this, and that's all really good. I think the city needs to make sure that they're playing a strong role in possibly bringing their own sort of ideas forward, and not to avoid a situation where it's begging the province or the federal government for money. It's not, you know, we deserve this, we're entitled to this. No, it's here, we've started this already, you know, this is a good idea, we're making things happen like this. Now that we've sort of proved our ability, we can then say, how about you help us out a little bit that way. But to take a slice from the province, I think that's very just. You know, it makes good sense for the province to kick in for, you know, people that live in the province will all benefit from taking some of that revenue from the provincial level. Yes, I'm aware that's a complex issue. There is a lot of groups there. I was part of I worked as a city bus driver for 4 years in the recent past, and when I left there, like my personal window into that, when I left, a portion of my contributions to my pension was withheld for 5 years. So that was a signal to me that, wow, there is really, you know, some trouble there. It's not like when someone leaves, they don't, you know, necessarily get what they put in even. And so what I think is that it's essentially a broken promise when a, you know, an arrangement is made. This is what your benefits should be. You know, this is what they will be when you approach retirement. And then when contribution rates get raised, you know, with or without consent, and when benefit payouts, when those are threatened, there's been, like, I don't know a lot of the, you know, detailed economics on the whole thing, but a promise is a promise. This is the arrangement. It should be there for people that have put in a career and worked hard for their city and, you know, paid their dues, that they should not have anything taken away. That's a promise that's been made. So that needs attention, and yeah, absolutely, there's lots of work to do there. I want to be evaluated constantly and by everyone. It's a big city. There's a lot of people that everyone has their own path and their own opinions on things, and I want to be absolutely the most available. If anyone's opinion of me is low, if anyone thinks that in all the jobs that I have done, I want to impress. I want to do a very good job. My mom told me a story the other day about how I was a perfectionist as a child, and, you know, I didn't even want to play if I couldn't win. If I couldn't get 100%, I didn't want to be involved. So, and that's who I am. That's real. I want to be recognized, not for being a big shot or having all the answers, just for, you know, putting a full effort in to do the best job I possibly can. Housing crisis, absolutely one exists. The vacancy rate is very low. The vacancy, I'll get a little personal again. In my house, the people in my house went from 3 people to 7 people in the last few months. Like, it's probably quite temporary, but you know, there was family members that couldn't handle the scene where they were renting. I rent my home. It's a good place for me. I like it. Me and my family are happy there. But there was people in our world that, you know, they needed a place because of, you know, and I've heard it from lots of other people as well. It's hard. It's expensive. There's a lot of jobs in this city that are you know, lower income. Like, there's a lot of Walmart and Tim Hortons and sort of, you know, your bottom level jobs, which, you know, it's good to have people employed, but it's kind of, it doesn't line up with rental rates. And I think that that rent control rules are, like, I've seen that they've done some good in some cities. I don't think that that's a one-punch knockout solution at all. There's a lot more things to do where, you know, there's minimum wage things, there's, you know, other things the city can do to sort of close that gap between, you know, the availability of housing. I think the city also should take ownership, and I don't see why the city can't do more subsidizing and owning property themselves. And I know that those sorts of things are starting now, which is a really good direction to go in. Like, why can't the city, you know, own some property and help out people and, you know, and listen to them, know what's really going on the ground level, and take those steps to close that gap and make sure everyone has a home available. Especially, again, like I say, people that have been here for a long time who sort of get left behind by improvements and renovations, and and the apartment buildings that have been lost and that sort of thing. I think other cities, I've heard stories about developers getting told by the city that if you're going to build this or that development of low density housing and condo conversions and that sort of thing, they've put in place that, okay, you can do this and convert and build this. However, first you have to provide something smaller and simpler and rentable, like soon, because we absolutely have a crisis, and there's thousands and thousands of people that are left in the gap where they have no other choice. What are they supposed to do? They leave town, and they're let down by their community, and that's really sad. On crime, I think everyone working with the police force and with the all the committees that deal with those things, I think they're doing their best. They're trying hard. I think you can always do more, and my approach is always on the prevention side instead of the punishment side. I think more investment could be made because essentially you have kids growing up that are getting in trouble with drugs and gangs and so on, and there's some sad parts of the city where there's obviously way too much of that, and I walk through the hood, and I've seen a little bit firsthand of how that goes, and it's disappointing. You can either spend a whole bunch of money locking people up, and then they're a burden to the system in that way, feeding and housing them in jail, or in all of these sort of after the moment of failure sort of thing. And though as soon as those things happen, I think that's evidence of a failure of the community and the society to sort of kick in that help, or that kindness, or that, okay, here's another option. You can do this. You can get into sports or get into art, or whatever the case may be. And there's a lot of those things that are already happening, and those people and those groups and those things happen through libraries and community centers everywhere. There's a lot of that sort of thing going on, and just to put a whole bunch more force behind those sorts of things, then you're gonna spend a bunch of money taking care of people in a before there's a problem, and you guide people and provide options while you're listening to what they actually have to say. Then you're spending that money before, and then you're going to weed out a lot of the people that might have gone down of a destructive path, and you just kind of change it that way. So not punishment, prevention, and work alongside people as equals.